Hello and welcome to the 2018 Summit for New York City. I'm Christy MacLear and I'm chair of the board of the Municipal Art Society, and I have the honor of kicking off this morning. But before I begin, I do want to thank Elizabeth Goldstein and the staff. I want to thank the board, both past board members and present board members who are here today, our sponsors, and I think, as you know, our mission is toward the advocacy of all of the best things of this city, but more importantly today we're really going to be looking at future planning. And that's very important because we can't look at building by building in an isolated way. We're very interested in looking at the future and figuring out how our advocacy involves those visions. I'm particularly delighted to welcome you to this venue. Today we're gathered at St. Bart's Church, a space which has great meaning to MAS. The Second Circuit Court's 1991 decision in the St. Bartholomew's Church versus the City of New York reaffirmed the constitutionality of landmarks law for sacred sites. That ruling was the culmination of many years of work with MAS and our partners advocating to protect landmarks law, which we had passed in 1965. In the years since, we've seen the church's conservatory group, which is led by Carol French, who's here today, invest in the historic heritage with the recent renovation of the incredible dome and reimagine its place in the community with the addition of concerts, theater performances, and other public programming. So congratulations to them for doing such a great job. I also want to draw your attention to the mosaics that adorn the interior of the space. They were designed by Hildreth Mier, an extraordinary muralist and former MAS board member, whose work can be spotted in some of New York's most iconic buildings, from St. Pat's Cathedral to Radio City Music Hall. You can see it just behind me here and in the vestibule just as you entered when you go around. Now onto the summit. This marks the 125th anniversary of MAS, a milestone that has us reflecting on the founding principles of this organization. It struck us as we planned today the surreal privilege for an organization founded when New York's streets were filled with horse-drawn carts, now to be recognizing discussions in city planning in the age of autonomous vehicles. Time and again over the last year, we've seen these themes and hear about today echoing across generations, that civic beauty is a value worth fighting for, that the success of a city is intrinsically related to its public spaces, that creating the future city also involves ensuring its most important historic elements, and that city planning be both community-driven and comprehensively viewed. Today's program, as well as our 125th anniversary exhibit, which you'll find on page 9 in your program, is a tribute to that prescience and the endurance of those ideas, and the centrality of the individual's role in creating such amazing cities. On that note, I want to make sure that you take a moment behind the screen, between the beautiful mosaics and ourselves. There are some things I'd like for you to participate in. If you may have heard, New York is in the midst of not one, but 2 revisions to the city's charter. It's a document that defines the functions, the organizational powers, the obligations, and the liabilities of New York's city's government. Think of the charter as New York's contract with its citizens. So some of the questions we hope you will look at include, what do you want to see in the way our city is governed? How can we tailor our spending to support the projects that New Yorkers need in their neighborhoods? How can we improve land use process to give communities a seat at the table? We have some partners from IDEO, which is a marvelous think tank group who work in the areas of research. They've seized this opportunity, and we have some civic engagement activities in the back, and it's really addressing the charter reform process. Please stop by and share your ideas to make sure that your voice is heard in this process. Now it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker of the 2018 Summit. And it's the speaker himself, the Honorable Corey Johnson. Speaker Johnson got his start in the crucible of New York City's politics, his local community board. After serving on Manhattan's Community Board number 4 for 8 years, he ran for council in 2014, representing the West Side from Canal Street to Columbus Circle, and serving as a steward of a neighborhood character and a steadfast proponent of his home district. Starting this year, his election as Speaker to the City Council introduced him to New Yorkers across all 5 boroughs, and he is already known for the style of leadership that is aspirational as well as reasonable and grounded in the principles of inclusivity and opportunity, and drew him to public service in the first place. He has led the council in launching the charter revision process I mentioned earlier, with a promise to give New Yorkers a voice in the decisions that will shape our government for the next generation. We've seen him take long stymied issues like the protection of the manufacturing in the garment district and forge a solution. And during this year's sometimes fraught process to reform the rules that govern Landmarks Preservation Commission, he intervened to ensure that transparency and public engagement were central to this process. We're so pleased to have him join us this morning and set the tone for today's discussion on the future of New York City. Please welcome Speaker Corey Johnson.